It's another good time to see you, our dear partner. We appreciate you for always making the power circuits your favorites. This program is a result of sustained commitment by the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, the only company with the mandate of transmitting bulk electricity in Nigeria. I am Amara Agogoesi, and together, let's get the best of this time. Minister of Power, Engineer Abubakar D. Aliyu, inspects new Zungeru hydropower plant in Niger State. Power sector operators brainstorm on grid operations and market development. NAPTIN hosts delegates of African power utilities at workshop in Abuja. We also bring to you an interview session with the General Manager, System Planning and Development at the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, Engineer Kabiru Adamu, as he discusses process, progress and milestones for the company's transmission expansion plan, through which projects are being planned and executed nationwide. Get comfortable and enjoy your view with the power circuit. The Minister of Power, Engineer Abubakar D. Aliyu, has paid a working visit to the Zungeru hydroelectric power projects in Niger State. The Zungeru hydroelectric power plant is a flagship project of the Federal Ministry of Power.
A statement from the office of the minister says, during the visits, the minister was conducted around the project, which has reached over 90% completion. The minister said the Zungeru hydroelectric power plant is one of the priority projects of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. Engineer Aliyu also said the project is set to add 700 megawatts with zero carbon to the national grid. The minister was accompanied by the officials of the Federal Ministry of Power, the contractor and consultants of the project. The project is set to be commissioned soon as part of the federal government's efforts to improve electricity supply across Nigeria and to fulfill President Muhammadu Buhari's commitment to Vision 30-30-30 of having 30% of renewable energy on the national grid by 2030 and achieving net zero carbon emission by 2060.
Major power sector operators recently met in Abuja to brainstorm on grid operations and the electricity market development. The Stakeholders Roundtable, which was the second this year and hosted by the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, had representatives from the 11 distribution companies, the generation companies, the Federal Ministry of Power, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, among other agencies.
At the opening ceremony of the National Electricity Supply Industry NESI Roundtable, the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, Engineer Sule Ahmed Abdulaziz, represented by the Executive Director, Independent System Operation, Engineer Muhammad Lawal, lauded participants for the commitment towards promoting power sector development.
I would like to convey the MD's compliments to you all. You would have loved to be here this morning. It was actually built to declare this roundtable open, but for several schedules that have actually engaged him of late. So he has asked me to convey his felicitations to you all. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you would agree with me, the issues, a multitude of issues that plague grid operations over time have not abated. We are here to develop strategies for resolving these issues. The issues are cardinal and they are critical to the survival of the Nigerian electricity supply industry.
The TCN head urged the operators to dedicate the best of their time towards harnessing solutions that would promote improved power supply for the Nigerian citizenry.
I would crave that we share understanding in a rancor-free environment, as we have always done, so that working in synergy, we can achieve our goals as set forth. A couple of months back, we met for the first time in a year. This meeting is meant to complement, the strides we made at that meeting. So I call on all of us to avail ourselves of the requirements, for forging ahead as a team that's dedicated to providing reliable and efficient power supply to the country and even to other customers, outside our borders.
Also speaking, the market operator at the Transmission Company of Nigeria, Engineer Edmund AJ, urged market participants to strictly follow the market rule, a set of guidelines that regulates the operation of power supply services in Nigeria.
We only believe that in such a platform as this, people will get to know what they should be doing. That's the essence of having this type of platform. So please, follow the market rule. The market rule is generously given to every market participant to go through. Incidentally, most of the operators, that is the front line operators in all the organizations, don't go through this market rule as to know what steps to take when there's an issue. Just to give that little explanation.
In a presentation, General Manager Regulations, Compliance and Market Development of TCN, Mr. Ali Bukr Ahmed said, the system operator and the market operator are crucial in managing the electricity system in Nigeria.
I think why the organizers choose this is because there are a lot of development going on in the market. And then you find out that we are actually off the track. The main difference between regulated and the regulated system is that responsibilities are shared, obligations are allocated, and then there are processes for administration and there are processes for governance in the market. Actually, aside the commission, the two most important entities in Nigeria electricity supply industry today is a system operator and the market operator, and incidentally, they are combined together in what is called ISO, that is what we are operating, independent system operator.
A follow-up discussion session was held by the participants to drive home the need for compliance with system operations and market operation guidelines in the electricity markets. Participants were taken through other presentations, including one of the Internet of Things and its applications in the management of the national electricity grid. The workshop continued the next day with a presentation on recent development in the electricity market with regards to the ongoing partial activation of contract dispensation. This was followed by a discussion on market developments. The next presentation was on the grid accountability framework in the Nigerian electricity supply industry. This was followed by a discussion on market developments.
The National Power Training Institute of Nigeria, NAPTIN, has hosted delegates from member countries of the Association of Power Utilities of Africa to a 3-day workshop in Nigeria's capital city, Abuja, where participants discussed models for power sector improvement in the continent.
Shortly before declaring the workshop open, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Power, Temitope Fashedemi, who was represented by the Director of Human Resources Management, Victoria Dioshun, said the activities of the association is crucial in promoting growth of the power sector in Africa.
I want to assure the organizers and all participants that Nigeria, that is NAPTIN, is open to more collaboration and partnership in this cause as a center of excellence of associations of power utilization in Africa, APWA, and West African Power Pool, with both local and international linkage. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I humbly appreciate your participation at this trade trainer workshop and wish you successful outing and networking for the betterment of our dear countries and African continent.
In his address at the beginning of the 3-day Train the Trainer workshop, the Director General of NAPTIN, Engineer Ahmed Nagode, said the workshop was historic for the African power sector.
NAPTIN feels highly privileged and honored to co-host this program and has been working seriously in the last couple of months to ensure a successful and reward outing. I wish to commend the efforts of APWA under the leadership of the Director General, Engineer Taylor, for deeming NAPTIN and the city of Abuja as the host of this event. We are proud of our working relationship with APWA through our sister agency, the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN. Engineer
Nagode therefore called on the participants to ensure they get the best of the workshop.
I want to recognize the efforts of APWA coordinator, his team, and the local NAPTIN working committee for the effort put in so far to ensure a age-free and a successful event. There are bound to be challenges when you bring in nationals from different countries to a busy and big city like Abuja, but I can assure you that we shall endeavor to put in the best effort and optimally make use of opportunities and resources at our disposal to address such challenges and ensure a successful outing. NAPTIN feels highly elated to have you with us. We look forward to a very successful workshop. I wish you a very pleasant stay and a rewarding workshop.
Speaking at the workshop, Mr. Jemai Kim, who represented the Director General of APWA, Mr. Abel Taylor, lauded NAPTIN for hosting the delegates from the various member countries of APWA as he urged the participants to take advantage of the training and improve their knowledge on power utility training.
I would like to invite each of us to take ownership of the results expected during this workshop. The post-training evaluation approach recommended by introducing the different concepts related to this approach within the network centers of excellence is ensured.
There was also a technical session where participants deliberated on various thematic sessions on the power sector and how to improve human capacity in the industry.
The interview segment comes up shortly. Kindly stay with us.
Verify that land before you buy it. To drastically reduce the incidence of building under the transmission right-of-way or encroaching on designated TCN land, members of the public are hereby requested to verify land near or along transmission line route before purchasing it. Verification should be made in the Land Development Authority or at the TCN office. This would help in drastically reducing the incidence of building under transmission line right-of-way and save us all the problem of pulling down the structure or truncating transmission line expansion projects in your community due to court injunction. Help us serve you better. Verify that land before you buy it.
This is the interview segment of the Power Circuit. Meet the General Manager, System Planning and Development at the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, Engineer Kabiru Adamu. In this session, Engineer Adamu explained why the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, is committed to implementing its transmission expansion plan.
TCN has continually emphasized on the transmission expansion plan. What does this mean?
An expansion plan is actually a document that describes or outlines strategic investments that are required to keep the development of transmission infrastructure on a continuous basis to meet the ever-growing need of electricity demand in the country, and this should be achieved in a timely manner and cost-effective manner and a sustainable manner. So typically the expansion plans are done to cover a long range of period, starting maybe from 20 years, 30 years, and in other clients even more than 30 years. In Nigeria, the grid code specifies that the transmission expansion plan should be for a minimum of 20 years, which is the reason why we typically do our own transmission expansion planning for the period of 20 years. So why do we look at it as a long-term development plan? Naturally, the development of transmission infrastructure has a very long gestation period. So starting from the project preparation to project procurement and project execution typically takes a long time. And since the demand is ever growing, it means that on a daily basis we need to have infrastructure that is ready to service the growing demand. So for that purpose, you need to look at the demand from a long-term perspective and also plan the transmission system to be able to match the long-term evolution of the demand with the time.
What is the level of the implementation so far?
TCN has a long-term transmission expansion plan at the moment that is in place. And as I said earlier, it is for a period of 20 years, and that plan was commissioned in the year 2018. So we have the plan that shows what is expected to be implemented in terms of transmission infrastructure from that period for the next 20 years period. So but typically what the plan is usually divided into kind of planning horizons. So it's divided typically into 3 parts. You have the first part, which is the short-term part, then you have the medium-term part, and then you have the long-term part. The short-term part is usually first 0 to 5 years. Then the medium is from 6 years to 10 years, and anything above 10 years to 20 years and beyond is the long-term part of it. So we have such long-term expansion plan, and TCN is trying to implement it to ensure that the development of the system follows such pattern. So the grid code requires that that plan gets reviewed periodically. The implementation level so far, we can say, is so good. A lot of projects that were envisaged to have been in the pipeline then are at high levels of completion in TCN and reasonably achieved to a large extent.
What are the guiding principles for planning and execution for the power transmission infrastructure?
We are looking at the various considerations that goes into the planning activity itself. So for instance, if you are talking about constructing a transmission line at a particular nominal voltage, say 330 or 132 kV, each of those nominal voltages have some range of operations that are still acceptable for saying the quality of supply is good. So for a 330, there is a range of a percentage deviation from the nominal position up, upper limit, and low, the lower limits, within which that if the system still operates within that range, we can consider it acceptable. So when you are planning, you have to look at the limits of those necessary components of the infrastructure that will be put in place to ensure that what you are projecting to pass through your proposed project is actually within those limits of acceptable performance of the system. So we have, for instance, the voltage limits. Then we also have the thermal capacity limits when you are talking about a transmission line. So the voltage has to be within the specified limits. The grid code has defined specifically what the ranges of normal operations are and what the ranges of emergency operations are. So as you are planning, you are considering what you are planning for and the limits that is available for you to operate, so that you don't plan something that will not meet the performance standard that is required for the system to operate efficiently. So another thing you look at is protection of or safety of equipment and personnel. So if you are going beyond the limits of what you are planning for, that means you are subjecting the system to a certain risk that might lead to failures, and failures, in electrical system eventually leads to some catastrophic effects, both on equipment and also on personnel. So as you are doing that, safety of equipment, safety of people, and also safety of the environment is part of the things you consider as part of the guiding principles in your planning process. You also look at cost efficiency. So there are plans that you will propose and discover that at the end of the day they are not cost efficient. So you have to go back and look at alternative scenarios that could possibly address the same problem, but maybe giving you another opportunity to evaluate the efficiency of the cost. So in every planning activity, you are bound to come up with various alternatives, out of them which you evaluate and come up with what is called the least cost option of achieving the same objective in terms of your planning activity. So cost is another guiding principle that has to be taken into account when you are doing your planning processes. Then another thing that is important is the issue of data. Planning is principally data driven. So if you don't have good data, then you are likely not to have a very good outcome of your studies, because your input determines your output. So integrity of the data you apply in your planning process is very, very important, as well as also the stakeholders' involvement, because you are planning not only for the transmission company of Nigeria, but you are planning for the entire industry. So your plans impact on other stakeholders within the industry. So consultation and engagement with those stakeholders is another guiding principle that has to be upheld in the planning processes, so that as you are planning, every stakeholder that is involved in the entire process is carried along and is aware of what you are planning, and he's comparing with his own development plans to see that there is synergy and there is alignment, so that at the end of the day you don't plan a stranded asset, so that all the assets that are planned are in synchro with the plans of other critical stakeholders in the industry.
You have heard from Engineer Kabiru Adamu on the efforts of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, towards planning and delivering critical transmission projects in Nigeria. The company has an active transmission plan that could last for 20 years, and this is being implemented vigorously, according to Engineer Adamu. Let's take you through the headlines again. Minister of Power, Engineer Bubakar D. Aliu, inspects new Zungeru hydropower plants in Niger State. Power sector operators brainstorm on grid operations and market development. NAPTIN hosts delegates of African power utilities at workshop in Abuja. And our interview personality today was the General Manager System Planning and Development at the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, Engineer Kabiru Adamu. The management official of TCN said the company has an active transmission plan that is being implemented vigorously by constructing new substations and power transmission lines nationwide. We urge you to keep in touch with us on the TCN YouTube channel and these other platforms. We welcome all responses from you, as it helps the company to drive its power transmission expansion plan for the good of Nigeria. I am Amara Agogoesi saying hello.